or Board Procedure BP5. This meeting will be live streamed and recorded and can be viewed on the DASD YouTube channel. And now it is 6 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. Rebecca, was the meeting properly noticed?
Yes.
And Anne, can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Jan Berg. Here. Brian Poker. Sue Esser. Here. Jeff Hahn.
Here.
Linda Lenhart.
Here.
Gussie Lewis.
Present.
Gail Lovick.
Here.
Stephanie Saar. Megan Taylor.
Here.
Thank you. That brings us to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That brings us to the mission, vision, and equity statement.
I happen to have that right here, Gail.
Great.
The mission of the DeForest Area School District is to provide an excellent education and engage, challenge, and inspire all students to pursue their full potential. The vision of the DeForest Area School District is committed to a culture that honors knowledge, respects individuals, demands excellence, fosters lifelong learning, and supports relationships that strengthen individuals, families, and community. Our equity statement is that we believe every student can learn and deserves equitable access to high quality, rigorous, and engaging learning opportunities. So we will ask questions, foster relationships, manage resources, and create systems to increase and sustain access, equity, and safety for all learners.
Thank you. That brings us to approving the agenda. Would somebody care to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Oh, we have some seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. That brings us to board business. Presentation and possible approval of board policy R2, numeracy, other courses, and technology monitoring report.
All right, so we have a team coming up to help present. Our directors of instruction, director of student services, and director of technology, learning information systems.
Welcome.
Oh.
Good evening.
Slides. Okay. All right, so now we get to talk to you about numeracy and technology and other courses. So R2, one of the strengths we wanted to highlight is when you look at our forward data, 3rd, 6th, and 8th grade data, the indicators to be above the state, which we are, and actually in some of them pretty significantly. So 3rd grade is above the state average by 8.7, and 6th grade it's actually 19.3 to be exact. And 8th grade is 15.4% above the state average.
On the ACT and math, we were above the state for the 3rd straight year. If you remember, we had the dip in 2022 where we fell below, and we've been consistently above since that point. Areas for growth, as we look at pre-ACT secure, we look at that cohort data. One thing that we noticed is similar to what we saw in our literacy report is that from 8th to 9th and 9th to 10th, really looking at how our students are performing and providing some support for those students, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Another area for growth, when we were looking at our C data, there are 8 total departments that we look at. And then when you think about and within the subgroups, are they able to get the benchmark of at least 90% of the population receiving C's or above? We identified subgroups that they were not able to meet that with even 50% of the classes. Trying to make sure I say that correctly. So for example, economically disadvantaged, that subgroup was able to meet that benchmark in only 2 of the departments. And so there were 6 departments that they were not able to meet that benchmark in. Special education was able to meet it in 2 departments as well. Our students who are Black or African American met it in 1 department, and our students who are Hispanic met it in 2 departments.
So if we think about some of the follow-up and action steps from last year's report, many of there's an overlap between the literacy report and the math, so a lot of the work that we've done as an MLSS system and continuing to focus on having consistency with identifying learners that need additional support in tier 2 and tier 3. And then, really being purposeful about pairing the interventions to where those gaps are. That's both literacy and numeracy. So we talked about that a little bit at our last board meeting. And so that work continues specifically with literacy. With numeracy as well, sorry. And then one of the big action steps is that we were looking at, and we were researching universal progress monitoring tools for both tier 2 and tier 3. And so we've been able to roll that out district-wide. And so we were using that FastBridge progress monitoring tool for numeracy and really being able to identify with more accuracy learners who are needing more intervention, or if the intervention that we are deploying is supporting growth.
Can you describe a little bit, Diana, how often that progress monitoring tool is used?
Yeah, so depending on kind of the gap the learners have, so if they're in tier 2, typically that's happening every other week, or sometimes at our higher levels, maybe every one time per month, or for our students with disabilities, every other week, or, you know, kind of depending on the needs. But so, and there's opportunity, there's a couple different tests within FastBridge. And so students were able to kind of target, like if we're working on fluency with math. And so we're looking at like that automaticity of their math skills. There's a assessment for that. Or if we're looking at more about that number sense or long, kind of like long division or kind of those types of things, there's a assessment for that. So we're able to kind of really target more closely with the intervention we're providing, and knowing that if it's helping or working.
I just wanted the board to get a sense that once we've identified students that have an intervention need, that's the progress monitoring we're doing with individual children or small groups that have been identified.
Yep. And then if someone's in tier 3, then it's happening on a weekly basis.
Last year, we had an action step of working with our 612 math team. So we did a couple different things. We did a math audit where we brought in someone from CISA 6 to really just look at our program and look at how, look at our instruction and our teaching practices. So out of that, we've been able to do a couple different things. Number one, we've really grounded ourselves in a book called Building Thinking Classroom, which is really about students taking ownership of the thinking and doing really deep thinking and working together to try to solve problems. So we have a lot of staff that are engaging with that work, whether it be with PDCs after school, or working with their coaches and doing coaching cycles, or there's just there's teachers in buildings now that have done this work, that it's coming up in their PLC time as well. So there's been a lot of good learning around building thinking classrooms, which aligns really well with our 612 CPM curriculum, because it's really meant to be inquiry-based curriculum. Another step this summer is we realized since COVID, we've had some teachers that haven't been able to do some in-person CPM training because they hadn't offered it post-COVID. So they're starting to offer those more, and we sent some teachers to it this summer. I was able to go as well and do some training from the administrative side. And live it like I was a student. So it was really nice to see and feel, so that I can continue to support staff. But we sent some teachers to that. We also added a new class at the high school called Compacted Geometry Algebra 2. This is a really neat class because it provides students an opportunity to advance in math, regardless of whether they came into the high school having advanced before. And it's really designed for students that want to continue to take math and get to that AP level, whether it's calculus or whatnot. So that class is really helpful. It's the first year it's running. Essentially how that class works is students take math every single day instead of every other day. So first semester, they're taking all geometry every single day. And second semester, it's all algebra 2. So that's a way that students are able to get that learning. And this year we have, I don't know if I have the exact number. We have around 100 kids taking that class.
That is an action step that was also it's an attempt to give children more exposure to higher level math before the ACT.
Right.
So obviously prepping them for what they want to do post-secondary, but also getting more of that knowledge into them before that ACT.
Yeah, a lot of that was teacher driven in terms of finding a way to continue to support all students, regardless of where they're at in their learning. The other thing we did add under capacity building last year, we talked about intervention support. So we were able to add an interventionist math position at the middle school, which similar to ELA when we talked about, this is a teacher that's designated full-time to support students in math, which previously our teachers were taking on that load of providing intervention support on top of their teaching. So this has been a way to really help. This interventionist is able to go into classrooms and do learning and then pull these students during a period of the day to really help continue that support, and they meet daily, which is something that's really great. And then at the high school, we talked about this with R2 literacy as well. We added the geometry English 10 workshop class, which is a way that we can continue to support our 10th graders, which is an area that we've found that we need to continue to support to try to, when we look at that cohort data, really keep their percentages up in terms of meeting advance.
Referendum dollars supported the intervention position at the middle school. And then also we were able to free up one of the math teachers at the high school to do more intervention this year as well. So some of those referendum dollars have helped support the interventions in math.
Yeah, and our math interventionist at the high school previously had taught probably like half-time teaching, half-time interventionist. This year, she's only teaching the workshop classes, so the 9th grade workshop and the 10th grade workshop, and then pushing into support algebra 2 classes and geometry classes where students that needs extra support. So it's been really helpful to free her up to be able to really support our students differently.
So with my 2 parts of the plan here was focused on the 2 survey questions that were developed last spring, I believe. And so they did the initial survey this fall. So the data that we got back is kind of setting our baseline information. But as part of that, to kind of, get some action going this year with that is my collaboration with the library PLC. I've met with them twice now, and I see them frequently as I go through buildings too as well. It's been a real pleasure to work with them because they have already taken a lot of steps on their own to beef up their digital citizenship lessons. And so I just continue to support them with that work. I have also included several of them into our tech team that we formed this year. And so they've been able to work on setting the course for that as well. And then most recently, as of last week, we had a team involving some of our librarians who went to a workshop at CISA to learn a little bit more about AI and how it can be used in an educational setting, primarily focusing on our use of Gemini, which is Google's AI, just like Microsoft has Pilot, and then some of you know ChatGPT and whatnot. The nice thing, and I won't go too deep, but the nice thing about the Gemini for Google is that Google has made 100% commitment to protecting student data privacy. It's the only one out there right now that is doing that. So it's really a great tool for schools to utilize. And we're in the process of really embracing the idea of it and rolling it out more at the higher levels right now because they're going to be the closest to be using this in the adult world. And then we're going to scale down as we get more comfortable with the tools, because research says first and foremost, the adults have to understand those tools before we start putting it in the hands of students. So that's kind of the direction that we're moving with this. But along with that, that addresses some of the questions in the survey with regards to deciphering information that they read online or not giving out their personal information and things like that. So that's kind of the progress we've made at this point. A lot of credit due to the librarians and their focus of revising their long-range plan, which is really in line with the work that we want to see with these indicators. Thank you.
Additionally, when we look at math instruction at K-6, some of the things that have been happening, the instructional coaches at K-6 have done a deep dive into math fact fluency and number sense, just the foundation to learning math and being able to manipulate numbers in your mind and understand the different strategies. They have taken that work and they are offering learning for all staff on the book studies in the spring to help them understand the research and evidence behind fact fluency and how that builds number sense in our students. They've also created a folder of resources that it has games, it has the articles on it, it also has activities to help that they can plug and play with students to help build their number sense as well. Additionally, we've done the updated Ready Math curriculum at K-5. So one of the additions that has been very nice is that they built in a number sense routine. So at the beginning of every lesson, there is already built in practice for our students to build their number sense, to really start to be able to subties, to look at dots and be able to immediately know how many numbers it is, how to make 10 in order to add numbers or find doubles or near doubles. So it's really using those practices to help our students have a deeper understanding of number sense. The other thing that has been really nice is through the referendum, we were able to hire an advanced learning coordinator. I know we're going to invite her in a few meetings so you can get to meet her, but some of the work that she has done is she's introduced many resources that have been helpful, and she's worked closely with teams. She's met with PLCs, she's in classrooms, and she's helping them create choice boards. So for students, and sometimes it's for the advanced learner, sometimes it's for multiple students, it's for all students, depends on the needs. But it takes a standard that this class is focused on, and then it will create activities that takes it to a deeper level. I'll give you a long problem and say, find the most efficient way to solve this and explain why it's the most efficient. Or I will have you she has a daily problem that she's introduced to the students where they get very excited about it. It's called Beast Academy All 10. They have to use all 4 operations, and every day it's 4 new numbers. And they have to use the 4 numbers in every operation in an equation that equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 10. And it's pretty challenging, and our students love it. So sometimes they will do that as their homework for the day, and they very much look forward to it. And so she's introduced a lot of really simple activities and worked very closely with our students and our staff to make sure that our students are challenged, and really made sure that it's grounded in the standard and thinking about depth of knowledge. So she's been a nice addition.
Okay. And for that reason, I think we're at that spot. Okay. That we have marked the report as making reasonable progress toward achieving the desired results. So I'll turn it over to the board.
Anybody care to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
You have a motion? You have a second?
I'll second.
You have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We now own the report. We can ask questions. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question about the choice boards. It's primarily for advanced students, but also for some students who need special support.
So she has met with staff and at PLCs to show how to create a choice board. And so some teams have taken off and created them for all students, but she has met with staff across the district.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
My questions are on the MLSF intervention. Are we identifying, or should I say, are there identifications that are similar for the same kids that are struggling potentially or would need interventions in math and in reading? They're very similar. Okay.
You mean like the process in which? you identify?
No,
Actual students.
the actual students.
Sometimes.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
sometimes.
have we seen an increase in number of interventions?
For
Totally.
literacy or numeracy
Totally.
or both.
We'll just stick with just numeracy.
I would say that's hard to answer. And I would say part of that, for example, as Diana had referenced, we have been able to, Fastbridge has also provided an additional data point for math. One of the struggles we've had is identifying support for math students using just iReady alone. And so a lot of times it'll come also to classroom observation, which it still does. However, what Fastbridge has provided is an additional assessment that can be another point for staff. So I feel like we are finally to a point where as we identify students for numeracy intervention, we have more data to support their need and exactly what their need is, and a tool to monitor their progress. That, coupled with the learning we're doing on practices, has really had an impact. So yes.
Yeah, because I feel like we've been able to be more diagnostic and like identifying, like this is the skill gap in numeracy. And so now let's develop an intervention group to be able to provide that. And so they may have been, part of an intervention group, but I feel like maybe we're being more diagnostic. So more groups might exist. Yep. But I don't know if the number of learners.
We have less red. And
Probably less.
that's, but so if that,
It's a
it
little more
depends on your,
targeted.
your question
Okay.
of like, does intervention more? Yes. And diagnostic, do we have more kids qualifying for intervention? No. As far
Okay.
as the the official 25th percentile or less in the area of
Right.
math.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Okay. This maybe is just me personally. I would be interested in hearing more or learning more as a board about this fast bridge. It sounds like an interesting thing that you kind of rolled out more just as board education of how we monitor or how often, or I don't know, something simple, but it's just an interesting tool that I think we're using. And the more we take, I mean, we saw this when Roz presented too, when we're sitting there and we're looking and we're actually using the data, that's exciting stuff. Like we're using the data to make very informed interventions. And I think that that's pretty cool.
If I could jump in.
Yeah.
At the secondary level, being able to have these interventionists has helped us really dive deeper into the data too, and really determine who these students are and identify them, and having more spaces for them to get that support, I think has really helped too. And those interventions are really helping lead out what data, like at the secondary level, specifically high school, it's really hard to identify data points of students. And so we're really working hard as a team on trying to figure out how we are getting that data, whether it's classroom data or data through additional screeners or tools to really diagnose who those students are. So I think we're doing a better job of identifying students earlier too.
Are you seeing any correlation between the students who need this extra help, who aren't as numerous as they should be, and absenteeism, anything like that with those particular students?
I mean, I would say, I don't know if we've done as deep of a dive, like when looking particularly at like our tier 2, when a learner is in a tier 3 intervention, we're really paying really close attention to that fidelity of the delivery of the intervention. We're really looking, make sure that the students participating in at least 80% of that intervention to say like, yep, we've really, like we've met the mark of what that intervention tool is supposed to be delivering when we're kind of determining if that progress has been sufficient or not. And so I feel like, like, I don't know if we've dug deep into the attendance around our tier 2 learners, but I know for our learners, our most struggling learners, we're really paying attention to that.
And I would say that the data teams, when they do come together and the teachers, they do look at to see, they will frequently, that is actually one of the things we have them discuss. Well, how do you see attendance playing a factor when we think about tier 1? And so many times they will, I hear that conversation so many times they will think through that as well as support, is how, if they're not here for tier 1, that obviously impacts their learning.
So could you just refresh me on tier 1, tier 2, tier 3?
Tier 1 is the universal classroom instruction, it's what everybody
Okay.
is getting. And so tier 2 or tier 3 is just defining they need a little more to help them meet the grade level's expectation. And so the tier 2 and tier 3 means they're getting a little more during Norski time support to help them.
And like,
Usually, go ahead, Diana.
oh, sorry. And then like kind of delineating between tier and tier 3 is just the intensity. So like how frequently, the size of the group, but they may be the same exact tool at tier 2 and tier 3. It's just thinking about like maybe it's one-on-one or with fewer participants in the group, and then really being mindful of how frequently the group is meeting. So especially like at the secondary level, our interventions aren't meeting as frequently because of A days and B days. But if someone's in a tier 3 or more intense intervention, they're meeting on a daily basis.
I always think of a triangle with tiers. So there's an intervention triangle. We should probably get that back out again. I know we did for the first few years of it's green all the way up to almost the top of the triangle, and that's 80%. So you're hitting 80% of the kids, and that's considered tier 1. And then there's shades of red at the top of the triangle, and that's the 20% all the way up that you're really targeting more services towards. So that's what we're kind of envision when we're thinking about like qualifying for intervention. So we often say the 25th percentile or lower, because that's where kids start to be in the red.
Do we have like an idea of, I don't know if this is correct or not, but an idea of when we would see improvement? Do you know what I'm saying? When we could look at, done the intervention, we expect to see some improvement by this point or that point or this time or that time? Do we?
It would vary by student, one, because it depends on how much they need. And also, one of the things that they ask us in the state is they ask us whatever intervention you're using, it should be evidence-based, and every intervention will typically tell you the length that is needed to really show. So it also can depend on the intervention that we're using, as well as the skill gap and how much support they will need. So it's very student dependent, but there are some factors in there.
But one of the great things about FastBridge is that as a system, we're able to kind of identify for like literacy or for math, the rate of improvement that we're looking to see. And so we can be able to see a student's trend line on their progress monitoring data. And so for, so the four of us here, if we all were receiving intervention based on where we started, our rate of improvement would look different.
Right.
If I was really close to the 25th percentile already, I wouldn't have a highs rate, but if I was very, quite low, my rate of improvement would be pretty steep. We want to see a lot of progress to be able to move up quickly, because we know we've got a lot of ground to make up. And so we're watching that nice trend line to see, is what we're doing. Are we seeing a rate of improvement that we want to see? And to Kate's point, each rate of improvement is individualized based on where that learner started.
Okay, so then once we get them to where we want them to be, where they should be after we've done the interventions, how do we know they don't fall back? Do you know what I'm saying? Are we checking and watching them, and how long? And
Well, we have those standard universal screeners 3 times a year. So typically what we do is if they have indicated their data shows that they are at grade level and they don't need additional support, we continue to monitor them through classroom observations, classroom assessments, and the universal screener windows to see if that changes.
PLC meetings are where teachers talk about the graphs that Diana's talking about. And so that is monitored throughout the year on a not weekly basis, but there's cycles built into their PLC meetings where they talk about literacy data, and then they talk about numeracy data of each of those students.
I think if we were to see the FastBridge stuff, that might be helpful for us.
Yeah, the graphs are
Understand maybe a
helpful,
little bit how
and
that
maybe a walkthrough of the assessment calendar, because in the assessment calendar, it has the universal screeners and also how often the intervention groups are monitored or changed up groups are. That might be helpful.
My other question, and this is not going to surprise people, but I love the digital literacy, and I love what you're doing as far as teaching in that. Is there any other data other than asking students? Because I know the answer to this. If I were to go ask my kid, are you understanding, are you using your technology right? Their answer is going to be yes, right? But is there anything out there that's like, I don't know, like I'm sure there's websites that we block, right? Are there people that are missing that would create like some sort of ding in a report that would be like, all right, they've not understood that? Or if it becomes where it's like an AI thing that a teacher catches a student misusing AI or something of that nature, versus more just asking them a question, did they do it or not?
Sure, I can answer most of that question. There are tools within the Teacher's Power, which one of the tools they use is called ClassWise. That's one of our web filtering things. And so through there, we set up like parameters, and then we can get alerts that say like potential plagiarism issues, AI, I don't want to get too heavy in language, VPNs, which means they're trying to create their own virtual network to get behind stuff.
That's
so
when he wants to hire them.
Not always, but yeah. So there's data there, but one of the things that I want to work with building leadership is developing a protocol for like technology violations, that we can document them and utilize Skyward data through, minors and majors, depending on the level of infraction, that then we can compare it. I've always been, back in the principal world, when I look at data, I want 3 different points of data. So that survey is more intrinsic, what they perceive is, and then the Skyward is more realistic. And then the next tool that I'm looking in getting is, and I'm writing a grant through the state right now to fund for a online education program. It's called Acorn EDU Education. I might have the name wrong, but I know it's a squirrel. Not
Acorn makes sense.
And the cool thing about that is it's only like, because some of you work in private sector, I'm sure your places have you do those trainings on phishing and all that. Yeah. Right now, we have a version of that we're using with staff, but it's not education friendly. So this one is specifically designed for education, not just for the teachers in the classroom, but for students K on up. It's leveled, the information that can be given, there's short bursts. And so my goal would be is we can get that program in place. Next year, looking at how do our librarians use that tool with some of the training that they're working on, and getting it into the secondary, especially at the high school, because there's some really good high school stuff in there that will really prepare them to be good citizens with the use of especially AI as we move forward.
Yeah, those data points sound more to me like that would prove what we're asking versus just asking, but I completely understand.
And I thought we had that conversation last year in terms of,
We talked about the indicators it was last spring because we created some baseline, and the feedback we had from the board at the time is that somewhat what Gail said about okay with student engagement survey result, but want something more. And so we came back with the student engagement survey results, and we know we need to develop something.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Yeah.
And it's a next agenda item. We should dig into it a little bit more too.
Yeah.
So don't be sorry. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Sue, does that answer you a little bit? Like, we're recognizing this is a
yeah,
data point.
I just feel like we had the same conversation last year in terms of asking about, do you identify where there's violations, or, you know, even in terms of, you know, damaged device or things like that. And so maybe it's a deja vu, maybe.
Well,
It is, but
the
it's-
damaged device, that's the
Yeah, that's a
operation.
different,
That's a different
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
different thing, but just in terms, yeah.
And I think the
technology.
debate we're having internally, and it's something we need to discuss with the board, is that more of an OE than a result? Because we think of like.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
those are good OEs, I
Right,
think, like
right.
things for us to think about is like, how many tech violations, you know, something like that, or that we have in place, something called Acorn or Squirrel or something. That we have this, or a program in place that teaches our students and that we're following it. So that seems more operational, like we're doing that versus the result of it.
Yeah.
It's hard. We're struggling with how to measure the result of digital citizenship.
I wonder too, and this is, I mean, I know you're following what we're asking in our policy, but as we ask to be technology fluent and we ask for it in R2, I just, like, I don't want to, I think technology is going to get bigger and we're going to ask for more data to prove stuff. I don't want to say bury it, but bury it in a report that already has a whole bunch of information, and we're already separating that report between numeracy and literacy. You know, is it more to the fact where it should be in R3 and R4 when we're talking about citizenship or, you know, that kind of stuff? Because I think that some of those reports, you know, technology as it grows, right, and we ask for more data, is that, you know, something that
That's
to
a
think
good
about.
thought too, because we think about, you know, that blue box is the policy language of be technologically fluent, able to use digital tools critically, ethically, and safely. When you talk about critically, ethically, and safely, that falls under R3 and R4. And it's not so much about the fact that it's a tool. You need to be critical, ethical, and safe if you're writing something, if you're speaking something, if you're using a device. So
I just don't know if it fits. I mean, when you look even just plainly at the titles, you know, R2 is academic performance, right? Does how you use your device prove that? Or does it fit more under self-directed complex thinkers or collaborative and responsible citizens. What are we asking them to do to be technology fluent? And I don't, it's a bigger thought, I guess, and sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree. I was reading this report. I struggled why it was there. Like, why are we looking at that?
Because it's always been there.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Struggled, like, yeah.
Not always a good reason. Yeah.
And this in general, this report for me was more hard. That was awful English. This report was hard for me to interpret more than others. And I don't know if it was the way the numbers were structured and the percentages, but I'm trying to find like always commonalities on if we're going up or down. And I could not for the life of me get this figured out in this report. So I don't know why this is different than like the one we looked at the last meeting, but it was like, I'm trying to find, okay, how are we looking? I just could not find common.
I feel like the C data is a little bit different on this report than when you have in literacy. And that's a huge
grades.
Yeah.
And it's
It's a lot to take.
and it's the attempt to try and provide a measure of other courses. So beyond literacy and math,
Yeah, this.
that's the attempt there.
So I guess to me, then that begs the question of, we've already separated R2 into literacy and numeracy. Do we really touch enough on the other courses that then should be
A separate
separated
report.
out, right? Like, so we see it's the same, it's R2, right? But it's separated out for us to be able to distinguish the data enough to be able to know whether we're achieving or not, right? Like, does that make sense? Because when you think about other courses, like, what is that? Do we really talk about
Yeah.
science or social studies or global languages in it? Not really.
Right.
And and they're listed.
Right.
Yeah, that C chart's what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
Like,
that's-
like I'm looking at going,
It's very
are
challenging.
we, and maybe it needs to have a small little like,
Just to not color code it. I remember the years where we
Yeah.
didn't have it color coded.
Yeah.
So,
Now we have a
yes,
color code.
I would agree. There's a lot
Yeah.
to that. But if I think it's separated out and we did more explaining, that could be helpful.
It's just a thought.
and for me too, I'm just saying my small thought process, I just couldn't, like, I usually do pretty good, like, okay, it looks like we're going the right direction. I just could not do that with this.
I don't know if it changes what we're asking for. It's just making it in a different. like, we're not
Correct.
Changing
I'm not
any
saying we need to-
indicators or
no, 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 no,
anything,
no,
or,
right,
or the action, it's just,
Yeah, the way we present it.
Yeah.
Presentation, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not asking for that, Gail. Please. I'm just saying, I just didn't
Yeah.
process it
Yeah.
as, didn't process as well for me to say, okay, are we in the right direction?
Yeah, we want to be able to understand the
Right,
reports.
right,
That's helpful.
Yeah.
More visual.
We're thinking maybe a graph would be more visually easy to understand.
We like big pictures and colors.
I'll make a
No,
note.
you're right.
Yeah.
Any other questions for anybody, or
That was my only thing. Is I just,
Megan, Sue? You guys good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah? Yeah. Nothing? Okay. I would entertain a motion on the report. Yep. Anybody? Motion? Thank you. We have a motion to approve the report as presented. Do we have a second?
I will say.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to discussion on potential indicators revisions for this report.
This
So-
page, you did.
Well, there's only the first part.
Good.
Okay, so we established baseline for the two technology indicators. We were establishing baseline. And so now that we've seen those results, the proposal is 90% of students. We didn't have an exact percent, we didn't have a SMART goal up there, so in the report. So now we're creating a SMART goal. But I think we heard quite a bit more in there. I think our team needs to think about what else could be an indicator and come back to the board with that. I definitely heard that. So. But these we would like to have. I mean, we're asking our kids these questions. We do find value in surveying our students,
Sure.
getting that feedback.
Absolutely.
So it's one measure.
I think 90% makes sense based on the initial baseline. Any other comments from the board?
I read through this 14-page.
Well, you only had to read the top
I
two.
read it all.
The other ones
Overachiever.
Like,
No wonder you.
I'm good.
Okay, any other questions from the board? No? Okay, no discussion on this. Thank you all very much.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
sorry.
So,
hang on.
well, we've got these two that we've got these proposed ones, but to take it back to what Bessie was great, we were talking about the interventions and the interventionalists and stuff. And I want to make sure that we're capturing some of that too in what we do, because they are such key positions and we're seeing that they're going to be key positions. And so does that make sense that we include more of that detail in these reports, just so we don't run into issues with the community thinking, why do we have these extra positions? What are these positions for? Why do we need this? When I was in school, we didn't have this, those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
And it's good work and it's big work that we're doing, and that work is contributing to our goal of meeting these R2s. And so just a thought to throw out there is there a better way that we can continue to capture some of that too in these reports, just to show the importance of it? I don't know.
I'm thinking what Rebecca said earlier, that we see some of that data in an OE already. And I was thinking about the same thing she said before. Do we pull some of the existing data from other indicators and evidence that will support this as well? So without creating more work,
Right.
but we're already looking at how that can be supporting evidence.
Yeah.
So Megan, I have a couple of questions. So you're thinking, I'm just checking for understanding. Possibly the board might be interested in more measures of impact of intervention. Is that what you're thinking? Or is that what the board-
That's definitely where I lean.
Impact
And maybe we need to have more of that education around kind of what we're doing.
Okay.
I just don't want that to get lost.
Yeah.
It's such an important thing that we're doing, and we talk about our referendum and how we were able to fund these positions, and I want to make sure that we really are showing the importance of this, and we're monitoring the importance of it, and we're showing how we continue to improve, because I don't know, I think it's very valuable to our community to see those improvements, than to understand those improvements a little bit better, deeper.
I'm sure all of you are thinking right now too of like, what does that look like? Without it being like impact of intervention ultimately means more of our kids are proficient.
Right.
Which is what our numeracy and literacy measures.
Yeah.
Maybe it's starting with the board on education of the intervention system. And then from there, we could have bigger discussions about what, if there's a measure in particular that would stand out. But let's start with maybe some information about tier 1, tier 2, since you had that question, Gussie, and now this. Like, I feel like we need more education as a group, and then we could.
That education could probably include where do we see that data? Is it in an OE? Do we want that data moved to when we see it here if we're talking about it? I mean, like that.
Percentage of kids that receive intervention.
Yeah, that was my thought, just
So that we
having
have
it
that in.
You know how
So
many
10,
interventions
yeah,
you've
yeah,
done, you
or
know how
11.
hours were spent.
Yeah, and
then
then just
you could-
footnoted
right.
in. I don't know, just.
I mean, you know that anyway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one would
Oh,
think,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
could just put a number.
Yeah.
So we need to do some work on educating you about intervention, and then we need to brainstorm as a team. And I think we could probably then come up with what would help us monitor that, bigger than just our kids are more proficient. Which is important.
It's very important. But these are our results policies. This is what we, this is the core of everything that we do. And sometimes I feel like we just don't give ourselves enough credit. I don't know. I feel like there can be, and I don't want to just create work to create work.
Yeah.
But, to go along with that, you've got the interventions, but what are we doing? I know we're able to now offer even more advanced stuff too. And I think that that's another piece of it too, is to hit on some of those advanced kids too, so that we hit not just those 80% of our normal kids, but you got the
Yeah, we want all kids growing.
10% of
Yeah.
our advanced kids and our,
Yep.
you know, like how that's growing too. Just to get a bigger.
Okay.
Picture.
I'll comment on that. Sorry, I don't mean to
No.
drag this down, but I look at it, if we were to put this in the paper and share it with the community, they would obviously, this would be a lot to digest, this R2 report. But if you could present it in a way that, like, everybody reading it could have, you know, some high level saying, oh yeah, boom, 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 these, looks like we're doing well. It makes it easier. It's good data, but it's, for most people, they won't understand. How the finance.
No, yeah, I mean, I think it just, I think we can always do better. Just making sure that we're highlight, because we're doing good things and we are making good progress. And we have continued to make good progress. I mean, I've seen it all.
I think
Yeah,
we're on C,
and I
but
think
just so
we're-
everybody's aware for,
The
Sorry,
idea
agenda.
that we added this position. So
Mhm.
what is this position doing and how many kids are they impacting?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
just as simple as that to, you
Right.
know, how many, yeah.
How many interventions were there, or how many hours, or how many minutes, or whatever, which I would assume you're sort of tracking anyway. right?
yes.
I don't think you'd have to invent that, you could just aggregate the number.
Well, and I was thinking the individual student, the progress lines that you were talking about, it would also be some way to talk about that, you know, showing that all students are improving, but you know, what's the range of growth rate?
So we kind of moved on to C without moving
Oh,
on. It's
C.
fine,
Alright.
totally.
I know, like, which-
Gathering input for the summary statement.
Right.
Does anybody have anything else they would like to add to the summary statement? No? Jan, do you have any questions for your summary statement?
No, not really. I think what we talked about, whether we got the data we needed, and we said, yeah, we mostly got the data we needed, but could you think about, you know, making it more digestible? And maybe, like you said, maybe more like newspaper headlines. So at least high level bullet points that would help us talk to our constituents and the press, right? Yeah, I think that.
Okay.
And something to do with tracking how many, or the intervention. Impact.
Impact of intervention.
Impacted the
Yeah.
intervention.
Nothing else? Okay, thank you.
Thank
Shut up and sit down
Thank you,
again.
team.
All right, that brings us to public input, which I have none. Sorry, you do not have to read that tonight.
Can I do it for fun or no?
That brings us to board consent agenda. Would somebody care to make that motion?
Make a motion to approve the board consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? A second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That brings us to superintendent consent agenda. Would somebody care to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. I'll move that we approve the superintendent's consent agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That brings us to press verification, which I have none, and brings us to board debrief of meeting. Did you turn around the debrief?
We were gonna use those two questions about whether we got the data we needed and whether we thought we're getting the evidence we needed. But let's go to the, are we focused on student achievement? I mean, because that's what we're aiming to do with the model of governance that we're in. So,
I would say that I think we continue to hone in and head towards that way even more around student achievement and just making sure that we're really getting to that core of are we bringing our kids along? Are they growing? Are they doing what they need to do? So I would say, yes, we're definitely moving more and more towards that.
what do you think, Josh?
I don't disagree with that. Side note, sidebar. I would love, we haven't seen kids in a while. We haven't seen the kids in a while. It'd be fun to have something. I don't know. I haven't seen anything from our kiddos in a while.
I guess we're going around. that.
Yep. Well, Sue, you're up.
Yeah, no, thinking of it in terms of with some new blood in the director's world and ideas that help, that grow from that. And, you know, kind of the outside looking in and being a part of it now. So I think that's helping in identifying results and what we want and where we go.
I feel like we are given an exorbitant amount of data about our students achieving. It's a matter of us being able to digest that, and I love being able to see the cohort information. We saw that in the last report, and that has been extremely helpful for, at least for me, to be able to see the growth from year to year on the students.
I agree that this was student data, which was what I also again appreciated being able to see or hear about the partnership between technology and libraries. So we're, again, I think doing better at making sure we're integrating across departments. And the other thing was that I felt like we were talking not just about interventions, but also about helping the kids at the advanced end, and that the consolidated algebra, geometry, and I didn't realize that was, and it's to make room for more classes later, but also to prepare for a test, which is really smart. So it's win-win.
So definitely, this meeting was about students and lots of data. I think that I would feel more comfortable for sure to understand more the way we had said, you know, we need more education, more understanding, you know, is this, I guess, change in the data, is it significant? You know, what does that mean? What does it actually look like? I see the numbers. What does it actually look like with the students, I guess? So that just, I think once we get the education that we need on the process and what it's happening with the students and what the numbers mean, what it actually looks like, that would be even better.
We're trying to spend a certain amount of time at a board meeting on student achievement. And I think we did tonight, because that's been all
2/3.
2/3. Yeah. I mean, for a while they were keeping track of minutes and stuff like that, but I mean, I think the agenda's been focused on student achievement. So I think we've stayed on task and found out.
There's no further comments. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.